Whiskey fumes and tobacco smoke hung thick in Blackthorn's only saloon. Thomas Everett flexed his cramped fingers. The cattle sale paperwork finally complete. 6 hours of negotiation had left his throat parched and patience thin. Another, the bartender gestured toward his empty glass. Number heading back to... A commotion near the back interrupted him. A red-faced man with threadbare finery swayed before Harley Jenkins, the saloon owner whose sideline business everyone pretended not to know about. "She's worth triple that debt," the drunk insisted, gesturing toward a corner where a girl sat forgotten, thin fingers methodically folding a scrap of fabric. 17, healthy, can't see, but that don't matter for your purposes. Thomas's stomach clenched as Jenkins leered, assessing the girl like livestock. Her vacant blue eyes stared at nothing, pale face framed by honey blonde hair escaping a practical braid. "Blind girls still fetch a price in certain establishments," Jenkins mused, "though damaged goods command less." Something long dormant cracked inside Thomas's chest. Before conscious thought, he stood beside them. "That's enough." The drunk squinted. "This ain't your business, stranger." "I'm making it mine." Thomas kept his voice level, though his hand drifted toward his gun. "You Sullivan?" "Silas Sullivan, yes, my niece Ellaner. I'll clear your debt in exchange for legal guardianship papers." Jenkins protested, but Cash spoke louder. An hour later, Thomas led Ellaner through bitter cold toward his waiting horses, her small bag of possessions pathetically light. "You're taking me to another establishment?" she asked calmly, as if inquiring about the weather. Thomas flinched. "Number my ranch, temporarily, then a proper school in Helena." "You're not as hard as you pretend, Mr. Everett." She tilted her head. "Your voice is outlined in blue when you speak of helping me." He dropped her bag. "How could you know my name? Or see colors around voices?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. People reveal more than they realize. 3 days later, they arrived at Whispering Pines Ranch. Martha Wilkins bustled forward, assessing Ellaner with sharp eyes, before shooting Thomas a look that demanded explanation. "She needs placement," he said stiffly. "Temporary situation." That night, Thomas retreated to his workshop, methodically sanding a rocking chair 6 years unfinished. Through the wall came soft humming, a sound of human presence in rooms that had held only ghosts since Rebecca died. His hands stilled on the wood. For the first time in years, someone else's breath shared his space, disrupting well-worn patterns of solitude with unexpected harmony. Blizzard winds howled like wounded beasts, sealing Whispering Pines in frozen isolation. Thomas watched from the kitchen doorway as Ellaner navigated to the stove, her movements too precise for someone who couldn't see. "Third cabinet from right. Top shelf," she said without turning. "The honey for Martha's tea." Thomas's spine stiffened. "How did you—" "I heard her open it yesterday. The lid makes a distinctive sound." Ellaner smiled slightly. "And the cabinet smells of cinnamon?" Not entirely impossible, yet his skin prickled with unease. Throughout the week, she'd demonstrated uncanny awareness, finding misplaced tools, responding to expressions she shouldn't see, naming approaching riders before hoofbeats were audible. "Come," he said abruptly. "I need to check the barn." In the stable's hay-scented warmth, Thomas led her past occupied stalls, until stopping before one containing a copper mare with wary eyes. "Willow," he explained, "injured last spring. Nobody can approach her since—" Ellaner tilted her head, as if listening to something beyond human hearing. "She's afraid. Not of pain now, but memory." "She's just a horse." Her fear glows red around her, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ellaner extended her hand toward the stall. "May I?" Thomas began to refuse, then gestured consent she couldn't possibly see, yet somehow she did. Ellaner slipped into the stall, murmuring so softly Thomas couldn't catch the words. Willow's ears flicked forward rather than back. Impossibly, the skittish mare allowed Ellaner's touch along her scarred flank. "How?" Thomas whispered. "I see differently," Ellaner said simply. That night, fever claimed her, sudden and vicious. Thomas paced outside her room as Martha applied cool cloths. "Like Rebecca," he muttered, the parallels to his wife's childbed fever unmistakable. "Don't borrow trouble," Martha scolded, but her eyes betrayed concern. When Martha finally slept, Thomas took her place at Ellaner's bedside. The girl thrashed against sweat-soaked sheets, delirious words spilling like water. "Blue integrity, wrapped in red grief," she murmured, unseeing eyes somehow finding his face. Golden threads, trying to break through. Thomas's hand closed over her smaller one. "Hush now. Colors don't lie. Can't pretend with me." Her fingers tightened with surprising strength. Lonely too long. By dawn, her fever broke. Thomas retreated to the porch, lungs burning with cold air and unwelcome emotion. Emmett approached, hat in hand. "School in Helena isn't taking students till spring," his foreman reported. "Telegram just came." Thomas watched sunrise paint mountains gold. The temporary situation had just become considerably less temporary. Inside, Ellaner's humming resumed, threading through rooms long silent. A sound his ears followed without permission, like parched earth receiving first spring rain. February's grip tightened on the valley, each morning painting frosted landscapes across window panes. Thomas established rigid routines, predictable interactions that minimized emotional entanglement while preparing Ellaner for eventual independence. "Quarter has ridged edges," he explained, placing coins in her palm. "Dime is smaller, smooth-edged." Her fingers traced each piece with delicate precision. "This one has a nick on the edge. From your pocket knife?" Thomas stiffened. The mark was invisible to normal sight. "Lucky guess." "Not luck," she replied softly. "Just different knowing." Days stacked like cordwood. Practical lessons in cooking, mending, navigating by counted steps. Despite himself, Thomas found words coming easier, conversations stretching beyond necessity. 6 years of silence, cracking like river ice in spring thaw. Then came the blizzard that swallowed the pregnant heifer. "She's missing," Emmett reported as howling wind rattled windows. "That red-spotted one, ready to drop any day." Thomas pulled on his heavy coat, checking ammunition in his rifle. "I'll find her." "I'm coming," Ellaner announced from the doorway, already wrapping Martha's knitted scarf around her neck. "Absolutely not." "She's in the northwest ravine," Ellaner stated with unsettling certainty. "I can see her fear, bright red, shot through with purple pain." "Impossible." "Waste time arguing if you want." Her chin lifted with unexpected stubbornness. "But she'll die without help." Desperation won over skepticism. 2 hours later, Thomas stood speechless in knee-deep snow as Ellaner led them directly to the ravine where the heifer labored, exactly as she'd described. Together, they worked in bitter cold, his experienced hands guided by her uncanny perception of the animal's distress. When the calf finally slid into the world, steam rising from its wet body, Thomas felt something shift between them. That evening, firelight painted the kitchen golden, as Ellaner explained. "After losing my sight, Colors came differently, emotions, intentions, living energies. Her fingers traced patterns on the worn tablecloth. Your integrity glows blue. Your grief is red-veined. Silas burns sickly yellow and lying. Why hide this ability? Some called it witchcraft. Others wanted to use it for gain. Her vacant eyes somehow found his. Silas tried to use me for card games, reading opponents. When I refused, he threatened the asylum. Understanding dawned like cold sunrise. That's why you seemed so calm when he sold you. Better an unknown fate than a known terrible one. Ellener's shoulders straightened. I calculated my odds with you. Blue integrity outweighed the risk. Thomas's hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. You calculated correctly. The heifer's calf bawled in the barn, strong lungs, announcing new life. Inside, something similarly new took fragile breath in the space between them. March sunlight melted snowdrifts into rivulets that sang beneath remaining ice. Thomas guided their wagon into Riverstone, acutely aware of Ellaner beside him, her face tilted toward warmth she couldn't see but clearly felt. First time in town, he explained gruffly. People will stare. People always stare at difference. Ellener's fingers smoothed her new dress, Martha's handiwork. Their curiosity glows orange. Riverstone's single street churned with spring mud. Thomas noted changes in himself as they navigated curious gazes. Back straighter, jaw freshly shaved, voice clearer than it had been in years. Small resurrections he couldn't explain. Outside the general store, a tall woman with auburn hair approached, green eyes, sharp with intelligence. Victoria Reynolds, she introduced herself. Town school teacher. Thomas Everett. My ward, Ellaner Sullivan. Victoria studied Ellaner without the usual discomfort. How do you manage your lessons, Miss Sullivan? I don't have formal. I've been teaching her, Thomas interrupted, suddenly conscious of this lack. Practical things. But not reading? Mathematics? Victoria's directness held no judgment, only problem-solving. Braille materials are available. I'd be happy to help. Something lightened in Ellaner's expression. Hunger for knowledge Thomas hadn't recognized until this moment. His failure to see it twisted in his chest. We'd appreciate that, he found himself saying. Later that week, Victoria's buggy arrived at the ranch. Thomas watched from his newly reopened workshop as she spread books with raised dots across the kitchen table, Ellener's fingers dancing across pages with undisguised joy. That evening, Thomas found himself in Rebecca's music room for the first time in years, clearing dust from the piano she'd loved. The space smelled of lemon oil and memory as he worked, not erasing the past, but making room alongside it. Ellaner appeared in the doorway, following the sounds of his labor. This room glows differently, she observed, brighter sadness. It was my wife's favorite place. The admission came easier than expected. Rebecca played every evening, even when heavy with child. Ellaner stepped forward, hand tentatively finding the keyboard. What happened to them? Childbed fever, both gone, within days. Thomas's throat tightened. I couldn't save them. Your grief is red-black, she said softly, but it's loosening around the edges. There's more color trying to break through? Instead of retreating from this exposure, Thomas found himself asking, what colors surround you? Greens and blues with yellow sparks. Her fingers pressed a single piano key, the note hanging between them. Hope mixed with caution. The moment shattered as hoofbeats approached outside. Silas Sullivan's unwelcome return, a self-proclaimed spiritualist, beside him, proposing exhibitions of Ellaner's gift for profit. Thomas stood on his porch, shoulders squared. "She's not a sideshow attraction. She's my blood kin," Silas snarled. "Your guardianship won't stand legal challenge." After they departed, Thomas found Ellaner in the music room again, her expression troubled. "I won't let him take you," Thomas promised, surprising himself with the fierce certainty in his voice. "I know." Ellaner smiled slightly. "Your protection glows silver now, like moonlight on water." Spring market day filled Riverstone Street with wagons and livestock. Thomas watched Ellaner navigate the crowd with growing confidence, Victoria beside her describing wares in the stalls they passed. The comfortable scene shattered in an instant. "Look out!" Ellaner lunged toward a small boy, pulling him backward as a horse reared unexpectedly, hooves slashing air where the child had stood. Silence fell as onlookers processed what they'd witnessed, a blind girl anticipating danger before it manifested. "She saw it coming," someone whispered. "Ain't natural." "Devil's work," another voice added. Thomas stepped forward, placing himself between Ellaner and the murmuring crowd. Victoria's hand found Ellaner's shoulder, her presence steady against growing suspicion. That evening, Reverend Thornton's buggy arrived at Whispering Pines. Thomas braced for condemnation as they settled in the parlor. "I understand Ellaner has unusual abilities," the minister began. "She's not—" "After my wife died," Thornton interrupted gently, "I fell through river ice, technically died for several minutes." His eyes found Ellanor's unseeing ones. "When they revived me, I could sense others' suffering, not see it as you do, but feel it physically. It faded after a year, but I never forgot." Ellanor's posture softened. "You believe me?" "I believe God's creation contains more mysteries than our theology admits." He turned to Thomas. "The girl needs protection, not exorcism." With the minister's support, Dr. Harrison proposed documenting Ellanor's condition scientifically. Synesthesia or similar neurological cross-wiring, fascinating case. The doctor's clinical language provided framework for acceptance. What was feared as supernatural could be cautiously embraced as unusual but natural. As Ellanor's position stabilized, Victoria's visits increased. Thomas found himself noticing details beyond her teaching skills, the curve of her smile, the scent of lavender water when she leaned over Ellanor's lessons, the surprising melody of her laugh. These observations triggered confusion and guilt. One afternoon, helping Victoria into her buggy, their hands touched briefly. The contact lingered in his awareness like a struck bell. Ellaner, setting the dinner table later, commented casually, "Victoria's colors complement yours." Thomas nearly dropped the water pitcher. "What?" "Her greens and golds interweave with your blues." "It's quite beautiful." Ellaner continued, arranging forks with innocent precision. "Like harmony in music." "That's inappropriate, Ellaner." "Is it inappropriate to notice truth?" She tilted her head. "Or just uncomfortable to acknowledge it?" Before Thomas could respond, hoofbeats thundered into the yard. Silas had returned with a man in official attire, waving papers. "Judge signed these this morning," Silas announced triumphantly. "Girl's coming with me." Thomas's hand tightened on the doorframe as something primal rose in his chest. Not the disconnected intervention of their first meeting, but visceral certainty that Ellaner belonged here, with him, where she was safe and valued. "No," he said simply, "she's not." The single word carried the weight of mountains, immovable absolute. In that moment, Thomas recognized that Ellaner had transformed from obligation to beloved family, and he would fight with everything he possessed to protect what they'd built together. Adoption papers lay open on Thomas's desk, morning light illuminating formal language that couldn't possibly capture what Ellaner had become to him. With Reverend Thornton's support and Victoria's careful documentation of Silas's neglect, legal proceedings moved swiftly. Silas's challenge collapsed when his extensive gambling debts became public record. Not fit guardianship, the judge declared, making Thomas's temporary protection permanent. Whispering Pines transformed with Ellaner's secured place. Music room reopened, gardens replanted, laughter echoing through spaces long abandoned to silence. Thomas completed renovations with renewed purpose. Each nail and plank an investment in shared future rather than maintenance of the past. Victoria brought books and specialized teaching tools, her visits extending beyond lessons into shared meals and lingering conversations on the porch. Thomas found himself watching the elegant curve of her neck as she bent over Ellaner's work, the graceful movement of her hands as she explained concepts. One evening, finding them laughing together in the kitchen while preparing dinner, Thomas experienced unfamiliar warmth spreading through his chest, not the sharp pain of remembering Rebecca, but appreciation for the present moment. Dr. Harrison's documentation of Ellaner's abilities attracted correspondence from medical researchers, creating future possibilities that both excited and concerned Thomas. Specialists in Boston want to study her condition, Victoria explained. Passing him the letter, the prospect of Ellaner leaving constricted his throat. Before he could respond, spring melt turned deadly. A shepherd was caught in sudden flooding near the north pasture. Thomas rode out with Emmett, despite driving rain, returning successful but soaked to the bone. By midnight, fever claimed him. Pneumonia, Dr. Harrison diagnosed grimly. Through burning delirium, Thomas sensed Ellaner's constant presence beside his bed. His colors are fading, he heard her tell Victoria, voice tight with fear. The blue is washing out. In fever dreams, Thomas walked sun-dappled meadows where Rebecca waited, their infant son in her arms. You've been faithful, she told him, eyes kind, but they need you now. I failed you, he whispered. Remember you loved us? She touched his face. Now love them. We release you. Consciousness returned gradually. Thomas opened heavy eyes to find Ellaner asleep in the chair beside him, Victoria reading nearby, Martha watching from the doorway, women who had fought for his life while he drifted between worlds. Welcome back, Victoria said softly, relief coloring her voice. Ellaner stirred, her unseeing eyes somehow finding his face. Your blues are strengthening again, she whispered. The gold threads are brighter now. Thomas's hand found hers, weak but certain. I saw them, he managed. Rebecca and James. They're at peace. Ellaner nodded, as if this were perfectly natural. Of course they are. They love you still. The simple statement unlocked something final in Thomas's chest. Permission to honor what was lost while embracing what had unexpectedly been found. Later, as strength returned, Thomas watched Victoria and Ellaner in the garden through his bedroom window, their heads bent together over sprouting seedlings, dark auburn and honey blonde, catching afternoon light, a tableau of life continuing, evolving, refusing stagnation. For the first time since losing his family, Thomas allowed himself to imagine future possibilities beyond mere existence. 1 year after Thomas first brought Ellaner to Whispering Pines, The ranch hosted a gathering celebrating her official adoption. Laughter and conversation filled spaces once hollow with silence, the house itself seeming to exhale after long-held breath. Ellaner moved confidently through rooms she'd mapped in both steps and emotional colors, accepting congratulations with quiet dignity. Her pale blue eyes, though unseeing in conventional terms, tracked the emotional signatures of guests with perfect accuracy. "You've created something remarkable here," Reverend Thornton told Thomas, clapping his shoulder. "They created it," Thomas corrected, watching Ellaner demonstrate to children how she read raised dots with her fingertips. "I just provided space." The ranch reflected transformation beyond mere repairs. Neglected corners renewed, gardens thriving, fences mended. Thomas and Ellaner had developed a system of colored flags visible from great distances, allowing her to see his location across pastures through her unique perception. Victoria appeared at his side, the scent of lavender accompanying her. "Letter came yesterday," she said quietly. "They've offered me headmistress position at the girls' school in Helena." The words landed like stones in still water. Thomas studied her face, noting tension beneath careful composure. "When would you leave?" His voice remained steady despite the sudden hollowness in his chest. "I haven't accepted yet." Victoria's green eyes held his. "There are considerations keeping me here." Before Thomas could respond, Ellaner approached, her expression knowing. "Victoria's colors are swirling with indecision," she announced with characteristic directness. "Yours have gone spiky with fear, Thomas." Victoria stifled a laugh as Thomas's face warmed. "Ellaner, sometimes the most important things are visible only if you're willing to see differently." Ellaner continued serenely. "I'll be with Martha now. You two should talk on the porch." As sunset painted Montana sky in spectacular colors, Thomas struggled to find words. 6 years of emotional isolation had left his language for feelings atrophied. "I've been thinking about expanding the school here," he finally managed. "Local children deserve education without traveling to town. We'd need a proper teacher." Victoria's eyebrow arched. "Is that a job offer, Mr. Everett?" "It's more than that." Thomas took her hand, calloused fingers gentle against her smoother ones. "I'm asking if your considerations for staying might include me. United States, this place we're building. I've been waiting months for you to ask." Victoria's smile bloomed slowly. "Yes." Inside, Ellaner described to fascinated children how emotions appeared to her, not conventional colors, but connections between people, visible as patterns of light and energy. "Your father and Miss Reynolds are surrounded by gold and rose light," she told Reverend Thornton's daughter. "It means they're choosing each other." From the porch, Thomas watched Ellaner translate her unique vision into language others could understand. He reflected that in saving a blind girl from exploitation, he himself had been saved from darker blindness, learning that true sight resides not in eyes but in heart's willingness to perceive connections once thought impossible. When Victoria's fingers tightened around his, Thomas finally allowed himself to see the future unfolding before them, not replacement for what was lost, but new patterns of light, visible to those brave enough to perceive differently.